Welcome back to another North Carolina basketball recruiting podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our rapidly growing YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. You also might be seeing this through our Facebook page, Tar Heel Illustrated, which we're doing a lot of fun stuff with. And of course, you could follow us on Twitter at Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of basketball recruiting, longtime college, AAU, and high school coach, Mr. David Sisk. And David was recently at the first EYBL weekend in the Atlanta area, Cartersville, Georgia. Had a chance to check out a ton of future Tar Heels, some potential future Tar Heels. And we're going to roll out a series of podcasts here over the next week or so, picking David's brain. He saw these guys play. I'm going to let him roll with a lot of this. And the first one we're going to talk about is Elliot Cadeau, certainly the one recruit most on North Carolina minds right now, and it's really been that way for a couple of weeks. And I will preface this, what you say, David, that there's been some vibes that were trending toward him reclassifying and joining Carolina now. Then the vibe kind of went the other way. So what is that now? And after that, you tell us what kind of player you saw.
Well, we've not seen anything to make it think it'll go the other way since the last thing you said, that it started trending more that he might stay. And, one good thing about going to these events, especially when you're talking about the EYBL events or the Adidas events, there's a lot of national media there. So you've got all the coaches, you've got national media, you've got AAU coaches. So I love it. There's not a better place to network. Even it's probably more fun to do that and watch the games. You learn so much about what's going on. So the consensus seemed to be that he would not reclass but stay where he was at. Now you got to remember, some of this is based on some things that we hear. But the other thing is just maybe kind of put two and two together, maybe some educated guesses. So it was some of that. But talking to people, if I mention names on here, basically everybody listening would recognize them. There's more than one, there were several. So, we talked about that during the weekend. But the trend was that Cadeau was going to stay. I've not heard anything since, and I've checked up with some of these people since, and I've not heard anything any differently. They wanted to know if I had heard anything any differently. I've not. But now let me say this. That doesn't mean it's a slam dunk. So if he reclasses tomorrow, don't say, well, that's Sisk and those Jones guys. It's two morons. Because, they may say that anyway. But I want to say this. I'm leaning that way. So if you ask me, the chances that I think that he stays, I'm going to say about 65-35, somewhere in that range. So there's definitely a chance that he could, but right now, the trend looks like it's toward him staying.
And about 3 weeks ago, it seemed like it was 65-35 the other way.
Oh, it was more than 65-35.
Yeah.
Things I was hearing, and if you watch the Geico Nationals with Paul Bencardi, he was just pretty much promising it. So I would have probably went 80-20 that he was coming. So yeah, it's taken if not a dramatic turn, not far from it.
You spoke to him about all this, and he said to you that the current roster
Yes.
that they'll have next year is, if not the deciding factor, it's close to it. Why don't you tell everybody about that conversation?
Yeah, and he said that was what's going to come down to, what's going to be the big factor based on whether you reclass or whether you stay in high school. So it's going to be the roster. And that conversation would have been the third weekend in April. So kind of give you a timeline where we're at. So, when you look at roster, everything was pretty well the way it stands now. There haven't been any changes, and you wonder, they got to May the 11th to withdraw. I think the only changes that you could have away from Cadeau is whether or not DeMarco Dunn or Seth Trimble could transfer out. There's speculation there. I don't think Seth Trimble would. Seth Trimble happened to answer a tweet that somebody had put out about him transferring out, and he just kind of just shot it down. So that kind of leaves Dunn. And I'm not saying they will, and I'm not throwing any gas on any flames here. I've not heard that they're going to or any of that. So, all I'm saying is that is the only possible change that you could have in the roster. So if when Elliot looks at that, he sees what it is now, and really with no great changes. R.J. Davis is back. You've got Simeon Wilcher. You've made some additions in the transfer portal. And the one thing to me that kind of, and you and I have spoken about this, it didn't make sense to me with Davis staying, with Wilcher coming in, to add all these guards, and the ones that they already got here now, to add all these guards into the lineup if Elliot was going to reclass. And at the time you and I started talking about it, we were under the impression that he was going to. And I kept telling you, I said, it doesn't make sense to me why they would bring all these guards in the portal and just keep adding depth to that backcourt if Elliot Cadeau was going to reclass. So that's kind of the give and take right there. Does that mean anything of certainty? And does it cement anything? Absolutely not. It's just random thoughts, but it's kind of putting all that together, and it's something you have to weigh if the roster is going to be as important as what he says it's going to be.
And the flip side to that is perhaps Cormac Ryan wouldn't have committed if he thought that Elliot was going to reclass and be there, because that might squeeze some minutes away from him. And I'm going to talk to him sometime this week. I told him I would give him a little buffer from when he committed to when we actually talked. So I'm going to talk about that. I'll ask him, see if he'll answer on the record about it. But I would think that that's a question he asked, and he probably got a response from Carolina that made him feel a little bit more comfortable about the minutes being there. Because if Elliot did come, David, we're going to get now to the performance aspect of him as a player. I cannot envision a scenario where he would come and only play 10 minutes a game. It looks to me like he's a quarterback-ready guy. And if anybody is affected, it might be Trimble and could cause a domino effect there. But it could also reduce the playing time Simeon Wilcher would get if he doesn't come in early.
Let me say one other thing, too. I saw a recent interview with him and Ian Jackson, and they were basically talking about playing together. There is the possibility, and we don't know this, but there is the possibility that Elliot could be a one-and-done player. I don't think he is because of his size, but the talent's there. But he's not a big guy, so he's not a prototypical NBA type physique that you would say, okay, man, if you come, and a lot of these one-and-dones come, they're guaranteed in the first round or the lottery. And he's not that type with his body, but I'm going to tell you, we're going to get in his gifts that God's given him, which are he won the genetic lottery. There's no doubt about that. So, but when you get into the size, that's one thing. But let's say this, there is the possibility it could be one and done. Well, if he were to come this year and be one and done, he and Ian Jackson would not be able to play together. So, because Ian's not, I've been told in no uncertain terms that Ian is not reclassing. So that takes that out. And I think probably a lot of people saw the interview. They are really looking forward to playing together, it seems like. So that may be another thing that they could come in as freshmen in the same class. Just, another thing, not saying definitely yes, no, but just something else to weigh.
So he won the genetic lottery. You saw him up close in person for a few days. What did you see? What kind of ball player did you see?
When you see him on I know this. Roy Williams, Hubert Davis, Tom Izzo, John Calipari, Bill Self, on and on and on and on, will not offer until they see a player live. And I believe Roy Williams only saw, and that was down at the end of his career, offered one player that he'd never seen live, and that was because of COVID. He couldn't get out. He didn't have a choice. And when you see Elliot on television, he looks a little pudgy. And when he plays, he's not in person. much more firm and lean in person than what he looks like on television. You also can't understand how quick his feet and his hands are till you see him in person. Television doesn't know justice. Very quick feet, change direction constantly, speed and direction on a dime, and may have the quickest hands I've ever seen on an individual. What was that game you played where you stacked the cups on top of each other and folded them up? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Cups in a pair. He would be the world champion. He would be the Michael Jordan of that game, whatever it's called, because he's got the quickest hands I've ever seen. He could go back to back, like behind the back dribbles, like bang, 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 bang. And these are hard dribbles. He pounds the ball in the floor. So it's just, I mean, it's like machine gun, like a Gatling gun coming, where it's just bang, 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 bang. So 4 dribbles behind his back, take it out, and 2-hand snap pass like a Kevin Love or a Wes Unseld, 70 feet down the floor and hit a guy right in stride for a layup, all in one motion. It's not like it'd take me 6 months to be able to do the 4 dribbles behind the back. And then after I fumbled it around, got it to the front, and then make it, it's all effortless. It's in one motion. He's got so many things that he can do and put it into a pass. So if I'm a player with him, I couldn't imagine anybody not wanting to play with him, because he is absolutely about getting somebody else a bucket. Now, if they need him, he could get them. He's a good shooter. I watched him. He's got a good mid-range. He's quick. You might not, you watch him on TV and he might not look that much. He is quick. And he's got a good-looking shot. So when I watch him shoot the 3, now let me tell you this, it's not necessarily an outside shot that he creates where he's going to go over the top of somebody. But, man, he can get, if he gets space or he's in the catch and shoot spot where he's open, he's got a good-looking stroke. It's one of those deals where he jumps about that high off the floor, and it's right there, and it's just under control, and it's just like a pregame warm-up shot. So he's got that. So I wouldn't look at, well, I don't know if he can score or not. Yeah, he can score, but his passing and his feet, footwork and his hands and all that kind of dwarfs all this other stuff. Man, he's got the package.
When Carolina fans are salivating over his game and lathering his game, like on our boards or wherever, often the names Ed Cota and Kendall Marshall come up. And when I've watched Elliot on TV, and I didn't have the luxury of seeing him in person like you, he looks to me like a guy that has a lot of that Cota drop a dime, a little bit of that wizardry that you were talking about, that Cota certainly had, but he's a better scorer, shooter, mid-range. He's got a little bit of a perimeter game. And with Marshall was probably the best up-court passer. You could run the fast break with a chest pass up the court better than anybody I think Carolina's ever had, but he wasn't supremely athletic. He was quick at getting rid of the ball, but he wasn't supremely athletic. He had amazing vision. It looks to me like Elliot has a little combination of both those things, but a little bit better athlete, a little bit more polished in the scoring part of the game.
And I remember Kendall was long. I remember watching him as a 15. He started for Boo Williams, 17 years old. Boo is like the legend of AAU basketball. J.R. Reed played for him, Alonzo Mourning, Allen Iverson.
All those Virginia guys, yeah.
Yes. So I remember seeing him as a 15-year-old starting for Boo Williams, 17 and under. And was just, like you say, just assist everywhere. But at that time, he didn't grow a whole lot from 15, like taller. He was long. He had that long frame. He had good size to him, where Elliot doesn't have that. So he doesn't have that size that they have, didn't have the length of that. But, yeah, all the vision and just the quickness, change of speeds, change of directions. You know, he's got all that. So to me, he's got everything that you want in the point guard, because being able to change speeds and directions and stop on a dime is really important, especially coming off the ball screen and then trying to get into the lane, like off isolation, off a regular drive, you know, when you've got trying to draw the defense. And he will find guys in every way imaginable and in every window. His vision is extraordinary in half court and the full court. It is amazing. I said this. I was watching him, and I was with some friends who are in the recruiting analysts and college coaches, things like that. And I told a guy, I said, he reminds me of Patrick Mahomes. And he said, who would you compare him to? And I didn't mention a basketball player. I said Patrick Mahomes. That's who he reminds me of, because he's got that. You look at him, he might not be quite big enough, but he's shifty. He's got good feet, and he's just delivering passes, just underhand, overhand, no look, whatever. Just passing guys open all over the court. So, yeah, of course, Patrick Mahomes may end up being the best quarterback that ever lived. So,
Wow.
That's probably a pretty good comparison for Elliot.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to check out David's interview with Elliot Cadeau, you can do so for just $8.33 a month. You can be a Carolina Tar Heel insider too. That interview and all the other interviews David did when he was in Cartersville. We got Drake Powell, you've got with Jaron Stevenson, you've got James Brown, you got a lot of guys, a lot of stuff there. It's only accessible for premium subscribers on our site.
Every player in that 24 class that signed, including Jaron Stevenson, except Ian Jackson. Ian played Adidas. Everybody else played Nike.
And you have a fairly recent interview with him about a month and a half or so ago as well that you can only access. And David's got a ton of nuggets, not just with his basketball recruiting stuff, but also our analysis of the Tar Heels. Dean is recruiting. We're adding to our football recruiting profile as well by bringing in an additional person. So right now is a great time to go ahead and take the plunge, just $8.33 a month, and you can be an insider too. Now, David, going back to some reclass stuff with Elliot, if it's about the roster, I don't think there's any movement on the roster in advance of Elliot coming in. I think the only movement you would see from the current guys, there are 11 scholarships spoken for right now, would be if he comes in. And I don't even think that's a guarantee, but I think that if people still ask, I get questions every day about DeMarco Dunn and Seth Trimble, and my response is everything that I understand is they're not going anywhere. But if Elliot were to reclass, maybe one of them might be like, you know what, I better go now because I'm not going to play much next year. So if that's the case, that strengthens the belief that for those who are suggesting he's not going to come in yearly, that bolsters that case, if you will. It gives it a little bit more validity because of Elliot reacting to the roster. The roster will react to him. He won't because there won't be anything happening without him moving.
The only changes that I could see, and we're talking about additions. Jaron Stevenson is still a possibility. Now, I would put those odds well below 50% because, number one, he would have to commit to North Carolina, and then he would have to decide to reclass, and we'll get into that in another pod.
Yeah, we're going to do another. The next one that we roll out will be on Jaron.
But also talking to an individual who knows this very well, he said maybe the only addition that they might be making to look, if they could find a backup center in the transfer portal for Armando Bacot, but finding someone to come in automatically and say, hey, look, you're not going to be playing a whole lot. You've got to agree to come in, maybe play 6, 7, 8 minutes a game, and finding somebody that's good that would agree to that's tough. It's almost like finding the Bigfoot or something. So, So, but, you make the case for Elliot there. And like I said, it's nothing set in stone. So it's kind of that, some things that we hear, we kind of base that into our beliefs. Like I said, probably about 65-35 him staying. But as you can see, it's almost like a lawyer going to court without any witnesses or without any DNA evidence. And you're just putting together a bunch of circumstantial evidence, kind of. But, you see just the things that kind of fit together there.
Well, Dave, that's a good place to go ahead and wrap this up. If you like this video, go ahead and click like, share it with your friends. If you've not subscribed to our channel, please do so. Jacob and I have a little minor bet going whether we're going to be closer to 15,000 or 16,000 subscribers the day football practice starts in August. So go ahead and subscribe because I say 16,000. So that'll get me closer to winning that bet. He's David Sisk. I'm Andrew Jones. Thanks for stopping by.